In this class, we're going to talk about breast massage. Now, this morning I went on the internet, and I went to Google and I put up breast cancer in men. And a whole list of sites came up, and the top one was the National Institute of Health. And I went to their site, and they stated that in 2009, there would be approximately 200,000 women that would get breast cancer, and about 2,000 men would get breast cancer. Well, I was flipped over to the news before I came in this morning, and on the bottom, yes, the little tagline goes across underneath the news. There was a little tagline that said, a certain number of male Marines at a base got breast cancer. Well, I mean, it was very timely because it happened this morning. And they were talking about trying to blame it on water. Well, I'm not here to talk to you about breast cancer because the whole premise of all of this that you're learning is ways to keep from getting sick. We want to prevent sickness. So how can you take care of your breast so that you don't ever have a cancer problem or a tumor problem or a nodule in your breast? Well, that's what I want to go into in this class. Now, I'm using a mannequin instead of a live person because I thought it would be more appropriate. And we went to a little shop yesterday and we picked up some little breast pads because I want to be able to explain this to you in such a way that you understand. So we have the breast tissue, and the breast tissue is fat. It's not muscle. So, you know, we stroke across muscle to unravel it. Well, the breast tissue is a little different. It's more like kneading it like dough. So we would knead the tissue in the breast. So the breast tissue is not connected to the muscle, which is the pectoral muscle that runs right across here. It's not connected, so it should lift off like I'm lifting this now. It should lift off. And it's covered by skin, so it's like this. And it's the skin that holds the fat in place. And so if you want to firm up your breast, you simply work on tightening the skin, and as the skin gets tighter, it firms up the breast because the skin is holding that fat in place. Now, anytime that there's pain or discomfort, that's a sign of lack of oxygen. In fact, if you'll go to, I think it's on willgreen.tv, there's a booklet called Oxygen Deprivation Syndrome, and it explains all that you'll ever need to know about what happens when you don't have enough oxygen. But when you don't have enough oxygen in tissue, that means that there's lack of circulation. Remember we poured the water back and forth? And while the water's moving, everything's fine. But when it sits still, it stagnates. It's the same way in the body. So unless there's plenty of liquid movement within the breast tissue, then there's a constriction, and that's where disease can grow. Now, there was a Dr. Max Warmbrand in New York who was the father of pathology in this country. And he was doing autopsies on the cadavers of people who died from disease. And what he found was everywhere disease was, there was lack of circulation. Well, what does circulation carry? It carries oxygen, right? Well, now, let's get back to the breast tissue. And I'm really going to teach you this to work on yourself, because in most places, unless you're a doctor, you're not even allowed to work on somebody else's breast. So we're just going to work on our own. So I want you to think about taking your tips like this. And we're going to do this motion. We're going to tap around the edge of the tissue. We're going to tap around the edge of it. And wherever it's uncomfortable, wherever there's a place that's sore, it's stuck. There's no circulation there because pain comes from lack of oxygen. So when I'm working on myself, I'm going to take my finger pads and I'm going to tap around the tissue. Now, where's most of the problem in breast today? I'm going to show you. It's right along here. It's right on the side here and on the side over here. And I don't know why, but that's where most of it is. So if you're tapping over here, if you're tapping and it's tender, then you just keep tapping. Not hard, just keep tapping and tapping and tapping until you get circulation into that area, and then the problem will go away. So this is all about self-care. Now, for women, because women have larger breasts than men, the easiest, best time to massage your breast is in a hot shower. You know how gravy is? When gravy is hot, it just flows really easily. But when it cools down, it gets thicker. Well, that's the way our blood and lymph is in our body. The hotter it is, the more liquid it is. So when you're in a hot shower, Now, I know when my wife had my son, she was engorged when she had my baby boy. And so the midwife that we were working with said, get in the hot shower and you'll let down. Well, she'd get in the hot shower and her milk would let down because it got more liquid. Well, it's the same way with lymph and with blood. So when you're in a hot shower, if you'll take your hands and you'll lift your breasts like this in the hot shower, and do that for a few minutes on each side, because there's a little bit of a cup right here that happens when your breasts are hanging down. And a lot of times liquid will catch in there and it'll fill up with liquid. Now, I had a lot of clients over the years that would have to go to the doctor and have a needle put in and they'd pull the liquid out. But if you do this, you wouldn't have that problem. And then if you do this and get all the circulation working, well, then you're going to be a lot better off. Because your breast tissue should be able to lift right off of your pectoral muscles just like this. You should be able to lift your breast right off of your pectoral muscles. If you take your hands like this, you should be able to get your hands right under your breast tissue, and it should be pliable. It should just be, because remember, the skin is holding the fat in place. The skin's holding it in place. There's nothing else holding it. It's not connected to the muscle. So I want you to think about this. Now, you guys, you're the same way. You need to do this. Because if there's any tight places, if any places that are stuck, that means there's no oxygen there. And you really need to read Oxygen Deprivation Syndrome. I think it's only about 30 pages, and it's a simple read. But you'll understand the importance of oxygen in the tissue. Because tumors pretty much are anaerobic, and they live where there's no oxygen. So if I want to make myself a little safer, personally, I want circulation everywhere. Do you know why I got into the massage field? I was working with National Institute of Health and the Food and Drug Administration. I was president of a medical corporation. And I learned something working with them. What I learned was that oxygen is the healer. That's what I learned. So I went from being part of the medical establishment to becoming a massage professional because I had one premise. If I can increase the oxygen in enough people, they're not going to get sick. I'm not in the get you well business. I'm in the let's not get you sick business. So I would really like you to be healthy and never get sick.